Where you see people moving to as far as Americans moving abroad right now?
I mean, I see a lot of people, Mexico has always been really popular. I mean, different parts of Mexico, whether it's like Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Mexico City, the West Coast, like Puerto Escondido, Bali, Thailand, like Chiang Mai, Medellin, Colombia, Florianopolis, Brazil. In a lot of places, of course, Europe, you have Portugal, you have Spain. So it's sort of, there's an abundance of places, again, depending on people's preferences, both weather-wise and culture-wise, etc.
What recommendations would you have for somebody that's thinking about starting the digital nomad life? They're living in the U.S. right now. They say, starting 2023, I want to be somewhere else in the world. What kind of steps would you recommend for them?
Yeah, I would just say, listen, take a shot. Go to a place for a month. I always feel like a month is a good time is if you want to do an exploratory trip, right? A month will get your quote-unquote feet wet and you'll get a feel for what the vibe is there. But at the same time, I always feel like a month is too short to like really, really live there, meaning right after that, month period or whatever it is, 3-4 weeks, you just are starting to really like, understand how things work and, find your local restaurant or coffee shop, maybe, meet some friends and create some relationships. And then, then obviously if you end up having to go back, then, you at least get a good feel for it. But I think, again, putting on that, trying a place on for size, so to speak, for a month, I think really is a good time period. And so, identify a few places. Obviously, I like to do it based on, weather and time of year. And do a little research beforehand, find some Facebook groups or, go online and find some forums and pick a few places and try a few places on for size. I mean, a lot of people like to, bop around and really be, very, very nomadic, which I think is great. I do think it does get tiring after a while, and there really is a value in finding a community and just staying in one place. But I think for people that are sort of new to this lifestyle, try a few places on for size and see ultimately what calls you.
And so would you recommend someone, let's say their lease is up, to just be like, I'm going to live abroad now? Or would you recommend first doing this 1 month test of, hey, I still have my place in New York or wherever it happens to be, but let's try living somewhere else for 1 month, see if I like it, and then kind of make the decision from there versus like just, I'm going to put all my stuff in storage, see what happens in life and roll the dice in a way?
I don't know, I think that's sort of like, what way do you like to remove a Band-Aid? Do you know what I mean? I'm more of I just like to rip it. Some people are, they want to sort of just like wall in, etc. But I think generally, but again, this is my preference, is you just got to take the dive. Because if you, keep your apartment in New York or wherever, then obviously you're going to go back to it. Versus if you really want to sort of take the plunge, just take the plunge, and then if you decide after a few months or whatever that you don't like it, then fine, and just go back to New York and get a new apartment, right? But I do think there's and again, maybe this is definitely difficult for some people, right? Some people want to be in control; they don't like the unknown, so on. And so I understand, the other side of it, which is, let me just do baby steps. But I think for me to really ultimately feel that level of freedom and ultimate acceptance of a lifestyle as such, you really just have to take the plunge and book the one-way ticket and see what happens. Yeah,
I would tend to agree with that. That's kind of how I've made decisions too. So, for example, I don't pay rent right now. And so I'm in Michigan with my family for a little bit, and I spent essentially the entire year abroad. So my colleagues live in Mexico City. I spent a handful of months there. The one recommendation that fits along with yours is, so I spent 2 months in Europe over the summer, but I wasn't anywhere for more than 2 weeks, right. And it's just too short. anything less than that, it was like finding the grocery store, coffee shop, just developing a routine where, for example, I just spent a month in Toronto, and there I felt a little bit more like home. So here's where I go get groceries. Here's where I'll do this. You know, the people at the coffee shop recognize me, start to make a couple local friends. And, you know, having that amount of time in whatever city that you might be thinking about moving to gives you, you know, you're not going to be an expert on the entire city or have this huge group of friends potentially, but at least I think at that point you could kind of imagine what would your life potentially be like if you were to settle down there. And then I think exactly with your point too of, you know, when I had spent less than, when I was traveling in Europe, it was just, it's hard to be productive. It's hard to have a routine. You know, it was really tiring versus, you know, having a place that almost starts to feel like home before you potentially move on to another location.
I agree. And you know what, that's even why, you know, right now I live in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I mean, there's definitely times where I'll, you know, go and travel for a few weeks or a month or, you know, whatever. But I think it's always nice to just have a place to come home to and, you know, have that sort of all your stuff and routine, et cetera, in one place.
If you enjoyed this clip, you'll definitely like this one right here, where Vincenzo gives you tips on how you can pay less in taxes. If you want to see the entire 50-minute interview, you can do that down below. Hope to see you in another video. Bye-bye.